Alright, Trickers and Trekkers, time to take a look at the final episode of the day, which is The Reckoning. At their regular staff meeting in the wardroom, the crew of Deep Space Nine review the state of the Dominion War. It's a time of great uncertainty as the threat of a Dominion attack on Vulcan looms overhead. And while the Romulans have retaken Benzar, home to the Benzites, there's no way to be certain they will relinquish control after the war. For now, Sisko, Kira, and Jake are taken to Bajor to visit a new discovery in the remains of Bahala. Although Dax observes how trivial such things seem in the midst of a war, the archaeologists have specific requested Sisko's presence. Rajan Kara leads the trio through the ruins, where numerous tunnels have been dug and excavations have taken place since Sisko's last visit. Kira knows that Jake is less than enthused, and Jake admits that he is concerned how seriously his father takes his role as emissary now. Kira reminds him that, at the very least, it will be a relief for the captain not have to think about the war for a little while. The monk leads them to a pedestal underneath the old temple, the soldier of the Bahala, something interesting written in ancient Bajoran. Part of the text reads, "Welcome, emissary." As Sisko touches it, he is thrown across the room. He loses consciousness as the prophet sent him a vision in which they mentioned the end and the beginning and claim that the reckoning is at hand. Awakening, Sisko is adamant in discovering what the tablet says and takes it back to DS9, where he and Dax studied in a science lab to translate it. Excuse me. In the meantime, he greets Kai Wen at the airlock. She is visibly troubled by the removal of the tablet from Bajor. In her usual subtle manner, she compares his actions to the plundering of historical treasures the Cardassians did during the occupation. After refusing, Wen launches a formal complaint with Starfleet Command, and Admiral Ross tells Sisko to stop meddling in Bajoran affairs and return the tablet. Sisko discusses the situation with Dax, amused about the time when Sisko thought the prophets as nothing more than aliens who lived in the wormhole. Sisko reminds her that, regardless of if they're prophets or not, they have a relationship with Bajor, which they proved when they stopped the Dominion fleet from reaching the Alpha Quadrant. Dax reminds him that he had to persuade the prophets to help, then they promised they would exact a penance. The conversation is halted when Dax discovers the meanings of the words on the tablet, which says that, among other things, the prophets will weep and the gateway to the Celestial Temple, DS9, will burn. Dr. Bashir, Odo, and Worf are sitting idly on second-level Quarks, considering the repercussions. As Quark himself walks by with their drinks, he complains about how bad business has been because of talk about the reckoning, but their conversation is cut short as the station trembles and the wormhole begins to behave erratically. Meanwhile, Sisko and have been in his office, where she informs him of flooding in Arakantha, in the Kantha province, earthquakes in the Kendra Valley, and the like taking place in Bajor as they speak as a result of the shifts in the wormhole. She believes he has angered the prophets by taking the tablet, and she has written a request from First Minister Shakar, saying as much, with the warning that if Sisko keeps the tablet any longer, it will harm relations between Bajor and the Federation. With no other choice, Sisko agrees to return the tablet on the first transport to Bajor the next morning. He does actually have to work out the holo recordings of the tablet, as she reveals more words have been translated. It's clear the emissary will play a major part during the reckoning. However, his role is left unclear due to the damage on the tablet. Later, Sisko discusses the situation with Kira and Ops, and they know their mutual dislike of Wen. Kira admits to feeling a little sorry for her in that she spent her whole life in service of the prophets and was finally rewarded for her efforts by becoming Kai, only to be forced to share the role of spiritual leader with a non-Bajoran. She also admits that, like Wen, she is jealous of Sisko's relationship with the prophets. However, unlike Wen, she doesn't resent him for it. Late that night, Sisko is visited quarters by Jake, who wanted to check on his father. He admits that he worries a lot about his father's role as the emissary, due to the fact that twice before in the past year, he has been rendered unconscious by visions. Jake has been called to the infirmary by Dr. Bashir on both occasions, finding his father unconscious on a biobed. Ben reminds Jake they didn't ask to be emissary, it's just what he is, but comforts him by reminding him he's also his dad. Late at night, Sisko's able to sleep and finally heads for the science lab. Ingram tells the prophets that he's had enough of their mysteries and riddles and wants a straight explanation for once. After no response, he picks a tablet and throws it against the wall in a rage, smashing it. As looks down the shattered remains, shocked at what it just did. 200 discharges, one red, one blue, emerged from it and disappeared through the ceiling. Dexter now investigated the science lab, and Sis explains that he got an uncontrollable urge to smash the tablet. Dexter Kessler remarks that she gets feelings like that but does not act on them. They find no signs of such a discharge, although there is an unexplained energy drain soon reported on the station. Unfortunately, now Cisco has to explain it to Wynn. She believes Cisco smashed the tablet just to spite her. He is empathic that he is acting with the will of the prophets, and that it isn't always easy to see the path that they lay before them. Wynn notes again the hardships being experienced on Bajor, and they must make clear that the tablet should have been returned. As he tries to reassure her, he is called to the promenade. Upon arriving at the promenade, Cisco steps out of the turbulence and finds Odo and station security gathered up around the Bajoran shrine, and Skira is standing in the doorway. However, her body has been inhabited by one of the prophets, with a blue glow and electrical discharge flowing out of her hands. The prophet sees Cisco and slowly walks towards him, causing damage to glass or other breakable objects as it walks. She addresses and informs him it is time for the reckoning. Cisco tries to explain what the reckoning is, but not much response. It says it awaits Costa Mojan. Wynn recognizes the prophet's words and explains that Costa Mojan is the evil one, a power wraith that was banished from the celestial temple. She also realizes this pertains to a prophecy. If the prophet wins the upcoming battle, the Bajor enter its golden age of 1,000 years of peace. Cisco turns to the prophet and asks what he's to do, but it replies he has completed his task. Wynn tries to talk to her directly, but it turns away without focusing on her. It simply stands, unresponsive, as Wynn offers herself to the prophet as his humble servant, but is ignored. Cisco tells the senior staff that DS9 is to be evacuated. Bashir balks at this idea, but Cisco knows the battle could destroy the station. However, Dex suggests not letting it be fought on the station. She suggests that they slowly, but gradually, flood the promenade with chronoton particles, which are fatal to the prophets, which will force it to leave. Given what the prophets had done for him at Bajor, Cisco refuses, saying this is the prophet's price for destroying the fleet of Dominion ships that would have almost certainly overrun the Alpha Quadrant. Although they were worried for Kara's safety, Odo reassures Cisco that Kara would have been willing to surrender herself to the prophets no matter what the consequences, even if it meant her death. Worf and Odo find one another near the airlock as they oversee the evacuation of the civilian population. Worf admires Odo's devotion after what the constable said about Kara letting the prophet take her. He is unsure that he could have done it the same way Adam and Dax. With Kara on their side, Odo assures Worf the prophets will be victorious. Cisco's able to persuade Starfleet that DS9 must be abandoned given the prophets, but nothing preventing the Dominion fleet from coming through the wormhole. Suddenly, Cisco's called by Odo to the promenade as a group of Bajorans led by Wynn reviews the promenade as they pray for the prophet's victory. Cisco confronts Wynn and threatens to personally order the people to leave as their emissary. As Odo leads a group of Bajorans to transports, Cisco and begin to verbally spar once more, and they are interrupted by Kira. The prophet announces that Costa Mojan has chosen his vessel. Cisco goes up to the second floor to see that it is Jake. Cisco straightens the power wraith to leave Jake and take him instead, but the power wraith is simply amused and throws Cisco across the promenade. Kira and Jake face off, and energy beams, red from Jake and blue from Kira, come out of their chests and meet at the center. The spectacle continues as sparks fly and the energy buildup reaches critical levels. As the buildup could trigger an explosion any second, Dax, who in an unusual state of agreement, urged Cisco to leave the station. However, he is determined to stay and see the reckoning through, and thus refuses to leave his son behind. Angrily orders them both to abandon the station. Dax contacts Worf and Ops and tells them they're leaving. Dax hurries to ensure that everyone is evacuated, and the final people are taken away in the station's runabouts. However, Kaiwan sneaks away in the confusion. The final runabouts leave, and the station is empty save for Cisco, Jake, Kira, and Wynn. The prophets win the celestial battles on the verge of killing the power wraith when she suddenly screams out a protest. Kaiwan stops and is triggered. the chronoton released herself. Both spirits are forced to leave the station, causing both Kira and Jake to collapse. Suzuka immediately runs to unconscious Jake's side. Captain Slug, supplemental. The station's population has returned and repairs are underway. Major Kira is recovering from her experience, but my son is still in the infirmary. Suzuka visits his son in the infirmary, where Jake is still weak but will recover eventually. He tries but does not know what to say to his son. To explain the incident, but no explanation is necessary. Cisco emotionally buries his face in his hands, while Jake explains that he was able to feel the power of its hatred and knew it had to be destroyed, even amid his death. He and his father embrace each other warmly. As Odo and Kira walk together on the promenade, she thanks him for his confidence in her willingness to let her go if the prophet's victory meant her death. His ability to let her die for her faith is flattering, although he assures her that he still would have been happier if the prophets had chosen someone else. Kira then throws Kai into the airlock. Wynn claims Cisco should be grateful to her as her actions saved their lives and the station from destruction, as well as stopping the disasters on Bajor. However, Kira is fully knows Wynn's true motives was not to get at Bajor, but chose to stop the reckoning due to not being able to handle the fact that Cisco has a stronger faith in the prophets, to the point he was willing to sacrifice his own son. Rin refutes this and claims her faith is just as strong as Cisco's, but Kira knows that it's not Wynn's faith that drives her, but ambition. As reckoning was stopped, the evil still exists, and Kira warns that it's possible not even the prophets know what is to come now. So anyway, let's take a look at some production notes from this episode. In the first few drafts of the script, Kira assisted by the Prophet and Wynn by the Pa Wraith, and the battle aboard Deep Space Nine was far more elaborate than that scene in the finished episode. Weddle and Thompson wrote them as having a running battle over the station, throwing fireballs at one another and completely destroying the promenade. The idea, however, became far too complicated from a logistical point of view, and Renee Echevarria was brought on board by Ira Bear to try to smooth things out and simplify the script without losing the essence of the plot. Apparently, when Steve Foster first saw Thompson and Wells draft, their survivor claimed that it would be a 15-day shoot. Normal DS9 shoot is 6 days. The battle between the Prophet and the Pa Wraith that's seen in the final episode was advised by Director Jesus Salvador Trevino. He saw this battle rules rather than an all-action shootout, and the script was rewritten accordingly. However, while Trevino's solution might have made for some excellent television for viewers seeing the complete episode, though the post-production effects were added during the shoot itself, it all looked rather silly. Assistant McCarthy, who scores an episode with the cut from our footage, testifies, quote, "They were just standing there, looking weird, like they were at the dentist's office, thinking of their upcoming root canals." Indeed, during the shoot of the Super Series battle, Baldwin and Visitor Kira Lofton had great difficulty keeping their faces long enough to get complete takes. Footage of Jake and Benjamin Sisko lying on the floor of the promenade was shot by a camera on the 25th of February 1998. Multiple takes needed to be filmed, as Kira Lofton kept breaking into laughter. Let's take a look at some notes about Kai Wynn in this episode. This episode undoes the recent modifications in the character of Wynn Admani, as seen in the 5th season episodes Rapturing in the Cards. While it seemed as if her role as villain was being rendered more ambiguous, in much the same way as the writers had done with Dukat throughout the 3rd and 4th seasons, as her relationship with Sisko was improving, this episode relocates her in a more familiar role of antagonist, a role she has occupied since her introduction in the 1st season episode In the Hands of the Prophets. However, as some fans have pointed out, her return to an antagonistic stance as regards to Sisko is somewhat unexplained. There was never any reason given for why she suddenly feels so much antipathy towards him again, when there was every indication that the last 2 times we saw her that she was becoming more accepting of him. Renee Echevarria has acknowledged this discrepancy, however. He doesn't try to fill in the blanks. Quote, "In Rapture, she seems to come around Sisko's side a little bit, but here she cannot just stand See that once again he's going to steal our thunder. That was the biggest dodge we did, because we didn't really explain why she had change of heart again." End quote. Indeed, in relation to when the events of the reckoning foreshadow her ultimate betrayal of the prophets in the final arc of the series, and in any case, Iris Steven Bear was much happier the antagonistic way than the consolatory one. Quote, "This will give us a much more dimensional Kai Wen. We had lost sight of what to do with her for a while. We liked having her as a villain, but this really made her a tragic figure. It made her a totally screwed up figure, and now we understood her." End quote. And now let's take a look at some continuities surrounding this episode. This episode contains a great number of references to previous episodes. There are numerous references to the blossom relationship between Kira and Odo, which began in the previous episode, His Way. Sisko's claim that the Dominion has solidified its hold on the Calandra sector. They're trying to establish its planning their Betazoid space into their Golos cluster. The first episode in the Pale Moonlight, where Betazed fell to the Dominion. Similarly, his claim that the Brahmins have forced the Dominion to retreat from the Benzite system also refers to that episode, where the Ramsar Empire joined Starfleet and the Klingon Defense Force in the Dominion War. The visit to the ruins of Valhalla recalls the 5th season episode Rapture, where Sisko first discovered them and an excavation began. The phrase of Bajor is heard once again heard in relation to both the prophets and Sisko, around the episode's Accession, where the prophets hear the Bajor, and Sacrifice of Angels, where they tell Sisko that he too is a Bajor. Sisko's claim that he is no longer uncomfortable in his position as emissary of the prophets refers to the Emissary trilogy, Destiny, Exception, and Rapture, which tried his gradual acceptance of his position. Indeed, the reckoning can be seen as something of a sequel to the trilogy insofar as its first episode to show just how deep his newfound faith has become. The penance mentioned by Jadzia Dax refers to Sacrifice of Angels, where the prophets tell Sisko that they will destroy the Dominion fleet and return as an yet undisclosed penance. Sisko's comments that Winn and Shakar have never agreed about anything before refers to the 3rd season episode Shakar, where Shakar defeats Winn to become the first minister of Bajor, and the two were shown as being diametrically opposed in their ideologies. Jake's reference to seeing his father lying the infirmary because the vision sent by the prophets refers to the episodes Rapture and Far Beyond the Stars. Worsley, the prophets are the only thing keeping the Dominion from coming through the wormhole, establishes that the Dominion has still not brought any reinforcements from the Gamma Quadrant. This episode represents the first time the prophets are seen outside the wormhole, and also represents their 5th appearance in the show after Emissary, Prophet Motive, Accession, and Sacrifice of Angels, and Sisko's 4th encounter with them, all previously mentioned except Prophet Motive. In the assignment, Jake says he was one to see a Pah-wraith. In this episode, he is possessed by one. Kira's comment at the end of the episode, "The evil still exists, and I'm sure the prophets know what that means for Bajor, has great implications for the future, something which will be confirmed in the 6th season finale Tears of the Prophets. Indeed, Koh Sammo-jung will return that episode, although that the Pah-wraith seen in Tears of the Prophets is in fact Koh Sammo-jung will not be confirmed until Shadows and Symbols. It will play a large role throughout the 7th season, especially in the series finale, What You Leave Behind. And now finally, let's take a look at some trivia from this episode. Louise Fletcher is not credited as special guest star for this episode as is typical. Dax says the tablet says the Bajorans will suffer horribly or eat fruit. In the scene between Kira and Odo at the beginning of the episode, Kira is indeed eating fruit. The phrase, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die," quoted by Gorka Bashir, is a common confrontation of two quotations of the Bible. "Eat, drink, and be merry" from Ecclesiastes 8:15, and "Eat and drink, for tomorrow we die" is in both Isaiah 22:13 and 1 Corinthians 15:32. While Kiko Ben possessive by Pah-wraith in the assignment, this is the first time the glowing red eyes and metallic echoing voice effects were used. Colm Meaney does not appear in this episode. So I think this episode is kind of interesting, and again, A little bit scary because, yeah, Jake with those paw wraith eyes, yeah, it's pretty scary. So, yeah. So, overall, I give The Reckoning 4 warp cores out of 5. My name is Tuna Mars. We take on the next episode, Valiant. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.